Hello and welcome back to Club Football, the EPL show. This is your weekly fan-led football podcast made over here in sunny Australia. I'm Tom Hughes, and normally I'd be joined by Jack. I'd be joined by Courtney in the studio, maybe green like John. Nada, nothing. Maybe it's something I said. Courtney will, though, be doing the World Roundup, as she always does, so that'll be in a little bit of a while. We have an away day playlist. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you'll know that we've got the away day playlist, and that's basically just, a whole bunch of football-related belter songs. In fact, they're not even football-related. They're just belter songs that you can listen to, when you're getting ready to watch the football. Maybe you're in the shower. Maybe you're doing the grouting. I don't know what you're doing. But this week, we're going to add Song 2 by Bale, which is an absolute belter, onto the playlist. If you'd like to introduce the podcast, send us a voice note just to introduce yourself, what football club you support, and the show. Super simple. Send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. On this week's show, we're going to be looking at the career of Gareth Bale. Absolute Welsh legend, no doubt. We've got, as I mentioned, the World Roundup by Courtney. How's it going, Court? We've got the Quickfire Forum where we answer your messages and thoughts. Then we've got a special edition. I say special edition, it's just a new version of it. It's Name That Club 100 edition, where all the answers and all the questions are related to players who are in that 100 club of the top goal scorers in Premier League history. And then we did touch on them last week, but we will look ahead a little bit again to the Premier League fixtures coming up. Obviously, we had the FA Cup this week. Liverpool lucky to still be in the Cup. I don't know if you've seen the replays of Wolves' disallowed third goal. It was touch and go. And for people out there who like an upset, Manchester City were beaten by Southampton today, I think, this morning. Again, I've seen all over social media, all the Newcastle fans are starting to fancy the League Cup. They reckon that they might have a little bit of a chance. Let's start then with Gareth Bale, because I remember Gareth Bale's retired. I'm sure you've all seen this. 33, which is young, I think, these days for a top athlete, top footballer like him. When he first came into the team at Spurs, I didn't think much of him, to be honest. I think I seen him in a game against Everton. I think he played left back. Obviously, he's a big lad. He's a fast lad. But he just didn't seem to get into the game at all. That was the first time I remember seeing him. And then to watch him then turn into, he became a world beater. But when he was at Spurs, I think he won the PFA Player of the Year, and he won the Young PFA Player of the Year award in the same season. And he absolutely smashed it. And then with Spurs, they went to the San Siro. He scored a brilliant goal in Milan against Inter. And he was just getting better and better. And, look, at that point, it was either going to be, it looked like anyway, didn't it? It was either going to be Man United or Real Madrid. So when he went to Real Madrid, I was quite happy about that. Because I think at that point as well, if they would have got hold of Gareth Bale, it would have been a really strong replacement, I think, for Cristiano Ronaldo. And I think Manchester United would have continued to be that sort of, pacey, physical threat that they were when they had that Cristiano Ronaldo and that back to front. Then obviously Gareth Bale goes over to Real Madrid, loves playing golf. He's playing golf every week. Real Madrid fans hate him for it, which I could never understand. You've got to do something, haven't you? I seen when Michael Owen when he moved to Real Madrid, he said, I've heard it in podcasts and stuff since, he said that one of the things he struggled with was, trying to get used to the lifestyle in Madrid, trying to live your life. And that's what Bale did. The guy, let's just talk about his honours just for a little bit of a second. He's won 5 Champions League trophies, 4 FIFA Club World Cup trophies, which I know some people out there don't care about. But if you've won one, it's nice. 3 Spanish Cups, 3 UEFA Super Cups, 3 Spanish Super Cups, 1 English League Cup in England, and then he finished his career off with the MLS Cup there. That Champions League final in Kiev, I was there. I was with Adam, my mate, and Liverpool looked good in that game. They looked good. Mo Salah went off injured. Real Madrid led, but Liverpool got an equaliser. Mane scored, and it looked like we had a chance. It really did look like we had a chance. Gareth Bale then scores. I think the greatest goal in Champions League history, because he gets up there, he scores an overhead kick. The box is flooded with red shirts at that point. I think he's got like at least 2 players within 3 feet of him, 4 feet of him. And he scored the most outrageous bicycle kick. And then he went and scored another one, which Karius sort of did his best to not save. But Gareth Bale, unbelievable player. I loved watching him play. I wish he wasn't there in Kiev, to be honest, truth be told. But he was an absolutely brilliant footballer. So Gareth, you love your golf, mate. You love Wales. You're sort of like Madrid. And on club football, mate, we're very fond of you. Let's have a quick break, and when we come back, it's our mate Courtney with the World Roundup.
Hello everybody, it's me, Courtney Paul. Don't forget to go on, give the podcast a subscribe on YouTube, or you can go on there on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. Give the boys a follow, make sure you rate the podcast. Again, it's me, Courtney Paul, not Tom doing a Cockney accent. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to the World Roundup. Again, no Women's Super League or Champions League on this week, but next week they kick off and there will be lots to talk about. In La Liga this week, we have Barcelona at the top of the table at 41 points, followed by Real Madrid on 38 and Real Sociedad on 32. In the game between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, we saw 2 red cards handed out to Torres and Savic, who had what I can only describe as a brief wrestling match on the pitch. Recommend watching the highlights on that one. Now over to France, it was a huge week for Lens as they beat PSG 3-1, bringing themselves closer to the top of the table, now only 4 points behind PSG. PSG lost their first game of the season last week and now another defeat. It leaves me wondering, and I'd be interested to see what you have to say on this, boys, whether the fame of having Golden Boot star and Golden Ball star has gotten to their heads, or if the 12 players they had in the World Cup put all their energy into the games in Qatar, and now it's showing. For the A-League this week, we saw Melbourne City win 4-0 to Western United, securing their spot at the top of the table. And another 4-0 win went to Central Coast Mariners against Adelaide United, who are now second on the table after passing the Western Sydney Wanderers by 1 point. In the game between Sydney FC and Wellington Phoenix, Sydney managed to miss 2 penalties. The first kick was saved and then immediately called a handball that was then taken by Lefondre, who managed to miss the goal completely and miss a chance at equalising the game in the last minutes. That's all from me again this week. My name's Courtney. Now you're all caught up.
Thanks so much, Courtney, for doing the roundup for us again, mate. If you didn't already check out Illustrated by Courtney's illustration Instagram page, I was trying to work out the description for it, whilst also, by the way, desperate to cough. I'm so sorry, boss. Have a look at it. She's brilliant, and she's very reasonable rates for the work that she's done. She's brilliant. If you haven't seen that last moment Courtney was talking about, which is the double penalty miss or save, depends how you sort of think about it. I'd probably say save, but have a look at it. From the A-League, absolutely brilliant. We'll put it up on socials. Proper drama. Proper, like, Saudi Arabia versus Argentina drama, but in a different way. Right, guys, look, Quickfire Forum, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now, we had a question come in from Paul, who's a big fan of the show, and he lives in Sydney. He's a Newcastle fan.
Picture the scene. You guys are playing for a team in the Premier League, and the game is in the afternoon. What is your pre-game rituals? What would you guys get up to? And what would you guys do to prepare yourself for the match?
Which is a good question. It's also a very hard question to answer because I've never been a professional footballer. But for sure, for me, every time I played football, sort of as I got older and the kickoffs were like later, because, you know, when you're a kid in England, most games kick off, don't they, from like, 8:30 onwards, probably, do you reckon? So as I got older, started getting to like 3 o'clock, I would definitely get up in the morning and have an absolutely barnstorming breakfast. I mean, like bells and whistles stuff. Toast, bacon, sausage, eggs, hash browns, maybe some black pudding, and if you can get hold of it in Sydney, a little bit of brown sauce. So I'd have an absolutely massive brekkie as early as I could, really, so that when it came round to kick off, I was pretty hungry. Well, not pretty hungry, but a little bit light, you know what I mean? Light on my feet, you know what I mean? A little bit of a dancer between the posts sort of vibe, you know what I mean? And then I'd have probably like a little bit of a Mars bar or whatever, and then I'd play, probably have 3 or 4 pints, and then be absolutely starving. Order some chips or something in the pub, loads of mayo, loads of chili sauce, and then I'm out for the night. But if I was a professional footballer, I think it'd look a little bit different. I mean, I'm always jealous of is, as a fan, you know, going to Anfield and seeing the bus come in is, on a big game, is an amazing experience. You know, I'd say to any football fan, really. I mean, I'd be interested to see what you say for your club. What's that thing you most enjoy when you go to your stadium? You know, I know it's different to Goodison Park. They've got different traditions, different to Old Trafford. Maybe, you know, if you're a United fan, maybe you'll go and see the clock for, you know, the Munich air disaster. Maybe that's your thing. You know, I know a lot of Liverpool fans will go and see the Hillsborough Memorial and go and see the Shankly statue and the Paisley Gates. I think for me, the big thing, always watching the bus come in on a big game. I remember Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League, which was Klopp's first season. Which, again, if you've never seen that game of football, Liverpool-Dortmund from 2015, I think it'll be, go on YouTube, have a look at it. It was an insane game of football, and a game that, to be honest, a not very good Liverpool side somehow managed to scrape through, but the scenes outside the ground was unbelievable. And then I think of, you know, other big moments like that when, you know, big title moments, Chelsea coming in on the bus, the unfortunate day that Stevie Gerrard had a slip, you know, the year after that, City coming in, and it's just raucous, it's crazy, and I was always jealous of those players sitting on that bus. I always thought that must be awesome to look down at that, but now that I sit here, Paul, and think about it, mate, I'd rather be me. I'd rather be me with the boys, having a bevy, watching the bus come in. Some lads will have a flare or whatever, crack on, then maybe go in the boozer for one last quick one, maybe 2 quick ones, and then into the ground. I know I didn't really answer your question, Paul, but that's what I've got. Last week, Tom Stoko had sent in a voice note about Newcastle United, where they could potentially finish in the table. He said, you know, if they could get top 6 and maybe to a cup final, that'd be a good year. And Jack and I had a really good crack about it. And Jack sort of, you know, asked, you know, would he be happy, you know, sort of finishing the top 6 and a cup final, which I think he would be happy with. Jack is the sort of the feeling I get from Tom. Maybe he'll change his mind if Newcastle can keep kicking on in the Carabao Cup. But one thing, Tom did send a message in about James Maddison. I suggested that maybe he's not. I know he's not a top player now, but I don't think he's going to be a top player. And I think maybe that's the direction Newcastle want to go in. But Tom sent us a message. He said, I think we'll be back out for Maddison. I think we'll back out of the Maddison deal with his injury, but I think he's slightly underrated being an English player, playing for a lower club, but he made the team of the year last year, which is pretty impressive, isn't it? And he will provide a bit more quality of set pieces. I mean, I know what you're saying, Tom. I know what you're saying. I think he would do that. Whether he would do that on a more consistent basis, I don't know, mate. I really don't know. Newcastle, by the way, have scored 6 goals from set pieces in the Premier League this season, which isn't bad. It's not bad at all. I think it's sort of the top half of the table in terms of that, and I think Spurs have got the most. Which, when you've got a big number 9, Harry Kane loves that ball coming in from set pieces, doesn't he? Sort of not surprised that Spurs are up into that area. Tom, again, mate, as ever, thanks very much for your thoughts. Last question. This one is a question in the Quickfire Forum from Amber. If you could go the game with one former player, who would it be? Who would it be? She didn't ask twice. I'm repeating it. Good question. I think there's 2 parts of me on this one. I think part of me would love to go for a laugh. I think that there's people you could go and have a laugh with. Certainly, like as a sort of, if you went with like Roy Keane, I think you'd laugh. I think sometimes he plays miserable on telly, but I think you'd have a bit of a laugh with him. You know what I mean? Someone like Jamie Carragher would be brilliant as well. Like, I think he's a coach who gets a lot of criticism, but Jose Mourinho, man, like he's fascinating, that guy. And I think as like a tactician, you could, if you could go and talk football, you could learn a lot of interesting things, I think, from this guy. And then look, I mean, if you go and proper old school, like someone like Johan Cruyff would be pretty cool. This is a guy who essentially designed his own style of football. And I think he'd be an interesting fella. So, one of those fellas. But I mean, to be honest, like if someone gave me the opportunity to have a cup of tea with Steven Gerrard, I'd cut my right arm off, truth be told. Look, that was the Quickfire Forum. Obviously, look, they're just my opinions. Maybe Jack will come back next week and maybe give some of his thoughts on that. Let's have a quick break for socials, and when we come back, we're going to do Name That Club, so make sure you get your pens and pencils out.
Hello everybody, it's me, Courtney Paul. Don't forget to go on, give the podcast a subscribe on YouTube, or you can go on there on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. Give the boys a follow, make sure you rate the podcast. Again, it's me, Courtney Paul, not Tom doing a Cockney accent. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Okay, all right now, take it easy. It's Name That Club. Every week we do a trivia just so you guys at home can get your thinking caps on a little bit. You know what I mean? Dust off the old cobwebs, Mark. You know what I mean, mate? Get thinking a little bit. So each week when we do a trivia, it's 5 questions. I'll give you the questions and then I'll give you the answers. In this part, there's always a lot of elevator music, which normally gives Jack or me a little bit of time to think about the question. I'll still leave it in so you can have a good think about it. So this is the 100 edition, which means all the questions or answers are related to players who've scored 100 or more Premier League goals, which is obviously a massive achievement, and there's not too many of them. Are you ready? Pens and papers. Question number 1. Which club did Romelu Lukaku score most goals for in the Premier League? Which club did Romelu Lukaku score most goals for? He played for Chelsea, West Bromwich Albion, Everton, and Manchester United. Funky elevator music. Oh yeah. You know how I like to party, baby. Number 2. Who has more Premier League goals? Is it Robbie Fowler or Jermaine Defoe? Oh, wet the old whistle there. I think it's absolutely boiling in this apartment. About to turn the aircon off because it ruins the sound. Absolutely sweating beans. Number 3. Harry Kane scored 198 Premier League goals so far. They came for Spurs and which other former Premier League club? Harry Kane has scored 198 Premier League goals. They came for Spurs and which other Premier League club? And number 4, Ballon d'Or winner Michael Owen scored 150 Premier League goals for Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, and what other club? Ballon d'Or winner Michael Owen scored 150 Premier League goals for Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, and what other Premier League club? That was number 4. And number 5. Matt Letizia played for which club when scoring all 100 of his Premier League goals? Right. Pens and papers down, kids. Let's do the answers. See how many you've got. Question number 1. Which club did Lukaku score most goals for? Was it Chelsea, West Brom, Everton, or Man United? The correct answer was Everton. He scored 68 goals in 141 appearances, which earned him that move, of course, to Manchester United, which didn't go too well in the end. Number 2, who has more Premier League goals? Was it Robbie Fowler or Jermaine Defoe? Jermaine Defoe got 162 goals. Robbie Fowler got 163. So it was Robbie Fowler. Number 3, Harry Kane scored 198 Premier League goals. They came for Spurs and which other former Premier League club? The answer was Norwich City. I think he was out on loan. I think so. Number 4, Ballon d'Or winner Michael Owen scored 150 Premier League goals for Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, and what other club? It was Stoke City. He went there. It didn't really work out too well for him. I think he was injured most of the time. And Stoke were like pumping the ball up the pitch and Michael didn't have the legs for it anymore. What a player. Great player. Number 5, Matt Letizia played for which club when scoring all of his 100 Premier League goals? It was, of course, Southampton. Let us know how many you got there in Name That Club. I'll be interested to know. I think Mark told me he's been struggling last couple. I think he was on like 4 out of 5s for like weeks. And I think since I mentioned him cheating, I think it's done his head in. And I think it's messing with him a little bit. Guys, that was Name That Club. We're going to have another quick cheeky little break. And when we come back, we'll mention those Premier League games coming up this week once again. And then we'll drift off into the abyss of the night. Righto, so obviously we've had the FA Cup, we've had the League Cup or the Carabao Cup games being played this week. We did talk about the Premier League games coming up a little bit on last week's show, and big games to look ahead to, isn't it? Manchester United against Man City. It's going to be an absolutely boss game of football. I think Pep Guardiola has already started playing the mind games a little bit, saying that he doesn't know what game plan he's going to use and whether he's got the perfect plan for Man United. I think he's trying to get it out early. I think that he's putting himself in a position where if Manchester United come up with the result, there's going to be a little excuse there. And I tell you what, I'll probably put a tenner on there being too many fixtures, to be honest, because I think that's what him and Klopp certainly always come back to. Brighton host Liverpool. You know what? I think it's a game that most teams in the Premier League will look forward to watching on Match of the Day or Opta Sport or wherever you watch your football. It's going to be a good game of football, I think. But as a Liverpool fan, can't help but be worried about it. I think it's got that element there, doesn't it? That Liverpool could get stung in that game, because I think it was 3-3 at Anfield earlier in the season. Tough game. Wolves, West Ham, both teams need the points. Wolves desperate. Wolves are desperate for the points. West Ham are starting to pick up a little bit, but they could do with it. And then, of course, Tottenham, Arsenal, North London derby. If you haven't seen the Emirates, it's had a makeover. They've got rid of the old graphic and artwork outside the stadium. The new artwork is actually really quite cool, and shows players from Arsenal's history, including men and women. It's brilliant. Really nice piece of work. And then, of course, Manchester City host Tottenham in what is technically Game 7, because it was postponed. I can't remember why this game was postponed, but it was. It might have been when the Queen had passed. That's it. It's a really quick pod this week. I think we covered a lot of things last week, didn't we? As we say every week, message a mate. It's something that we came up with on the show, because I think Jack and I think John to some degree as well, because we're expats, because we live in a different country, we don't really have that, instant connection with people. It's sometimes it can be difficult to sort of branch out and things like that. And I always thought it was really a good idea that people reach out to people, no matter where they are, if it's a mate who you haven't spoke to. So if there's a mate out there you haven't spoke to in a little bit of a while, maybe they're in a different time zone, maybe they live down the road, drop them a little message after this podcast ends and just say hello to them. If you are enjoying the podcast, why not pass it on to a mate? If there's someone out there who enjoys a little bit of football, Bob's your uncle, send it on to them. In fact, if you're going to message a mate and say hello to them and they like football, maybe say, how you doing? By the way, here's a link. It's the Club Football Podcast link. Please do it. We've been doing this podcast now for 20 episodes. We're enjoying it. We're loving it. If you're enjoying it, please do jump on, give us a subscribe on YouTube, give us a follow and a rating on Spotify and Apple. It only takes a second, but it might make a big difference for us. But we'd absolutely love you for it. The bigger we can make the podcast, the better we can make it in the long term. Don't forget to jump on our socials though. Jump on. We've got stuff going up all the time. To be honest, what we often do is see what great videos are out there that are already being used by football social media accounts, and we just repost it on our stories. So there's loads of stuff going up there. Check it out. Once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening for me, for however long this has been. It's been nice, hasn't it? It's been intimate, hasn't it? Maybe a little bit too intimate. Hopefully next week we'll have Jack. Maybe even John might come on next week. Touch wood. Courtney as well. To everyone, have a boss week. Enjoy your football. We sure will. See you on the other side.